welcome to Kerry's Cards. Today's session or workshop is going to be on how to create what looks like quite a simple card from the outside to one that is quite impressive when you open it up. I call it an exploding card. We're going to start making this smaller version, this one here, which is a 4 by 5 3/4, and then I'm also going to show you how to make one that is 6 by 6 using some designer series paper. So the idea is with this one is the inside you make it using card. You could use designer series paper if you want. This one, when you open it up, it explodes with a display of your Christmas, this one particularly Christmas, but obviously you can make it whichever you want. And then this one is using the same principles for the folding techniques inside. Often we have some really nice designer series paper that we don't want to cut. This is perfect for one of those cards. You see here when you open it up, this uses a whole sheet of 12 by 12 card. You can see the nice pattern on the inside as well that marries up to the front. And then it takes you down to the smaller one. I'm not going to show you how to make this one, but it's essentially the same as that, but a smaller version. This is a 3 by 3 piece of card that opens up and uses a smaller piece of 6 by 6. And then you can decorate it how you like inside. So let's move on and make the first one, the 4 by 5 3/4. What we need to start with is our base card. So I've already pre-cut this piece of card here. Let's cut it into 5 3/4, and then score at 4, fold in half, and then cut the extra bit off. That gives me my 4 by 5 3/4 for the outside. I then need a second piece of card stock. I'm using Night of Navy here. The inside of this one is using a square piece of card, 7.5 inches by 7.5 inches. And the reason it's 7.5 inches is the base card is 4 by 4, so 8 inches wide when you open it up. My page just popped out. When you open it up, let's put that to one side. So when you open up the card, when it explodes on the inside, then you have, when you fit it in, you can see a small overlay there, so it's slightly smaller than the outside, so that when you fold it up, you can't actually see it on the outside. So that's why we do it slightly smaller than the width of the finished card when it's opened out. So because we're using cardboard for our inside, we must make sure things that we need to make the card, I forgot to say, were a pair of scissors, a bone folder, glue, a ruler, and a pen or a pencil. Now, if you use a pencil, you can rub it out. If you use a pen, you just flip the piece of card over so you can't see the marks, but that'll become more clear when we go through. So the first fold we're going to do is in half. I'm just going to check that that is square, so it should be 7.5 by 7.5. Yep. Fold it in half. And use a bone folder because it's moving parts, remember. I'm going to fold it both directions. Then only going to do one fold horizontally. We're then going to start diagonal folds from corner to corner. Make sure we do the other side as well. And then we're going to go corner to corner, but the opposite side. And use my bone folder again. Open it up and fold again. So we have then our basic inside, but we need to make it so that it folds a little bit better when it explodes. And by doing that, we're going to create 2 little corners here to make squares. So if we take our trimmer, or if you don't have a trimmer and you have a scorer on your scoreboard, we're going to pop it in and we line it up to 1 7/8. We take the scoring blade and go down to the first diagonal, lift it up, down to the second diagonal and score again. So you can see there we've scored at the bottom and the top. We're going to rotate it 90 degrees. We're going to then score again up to the first diagonal and then lift and then up again to the second. We're going to rotate again by 90 degrees, 1 7/8, and down to the diagonal, lift, down to the second diagonal, lift and rotate, 1 7/8, and as we did before there. So there you can see. Let's pop that out of the way. We've got our score lines in each of the corners. Now this bit here, these two pieces here don't have a score line in, and this is because these two pieces are going to be the bits that stick to the inside of our card. So we want to make, by doing these folds we've already done, we're sort of going to force them into triangles. So see how that's gone down and it's made on top of one another to make a triangle. And then I'm going to fold that down. So I'll just open that up again so you can see. So I bent it up, pushed the two horizontal ones in, and it causes a triangle shape. Then take our corner pieces we've got here, open it up slightly and push in those corner squares that we've made. And do that on both sides on the first triangle. Push it in. And then flip it over, so we've got sort of a house shape, for want of a better word. Use your bone folder to make sure that it's nice and flat. Flip it over and we'll do exactly the same on this side. And then use our bone folder again. Go nice and heavy. Okay, so that is our mechanism for the inside of the card. Okay, so we've got that ready to go inside there, but before we do that we're going to make the bits to decorate the inside, because it's always better to decorate it before you put it all together. So you have a couple of options here. Now I like to have a template ready, so I've created a template using these measurements here. This is a square piece of card. Well, I say square, so one is 3.5 inches by 3 3/8 of an inch. I've then measured up 1 5/8 from on the 3 3/8 height, and then the center point at the top is 1 3/4. Then drawn a line to the 2, and this bit here and here can be cut off. And then that is just the right size to infill the bottom gap with a little edge round at the top and the bottom. And the same one will also work there to have a little bit of an edge. In the instructions below in the blurb, I've also given you the measurements if you want to make a whole piece to fit in there, but I'm not going to use those today for this card. Okay. Now, to decorate the front and the inside on this card, I just use one piece of designer series paper that is 6 by 6 inches. 2 corners are there, and then the inside I've used the shape that I've just shown you for the template, and then the little pieces that were cut off the sides have actually gone and decorated in the corners of each of the pop-up bit. So let's show you how I did that. So you have 2 options. What you can do is, using your template here, if you've made your template, you can pop your pieces in there and draw around them on that corner, rotate it 180 degrees, pop it in that corner and draw around. And that will give you those 2 shapes there and there, leaving these pieces left behind. Or what you then have the option, or you have the option of following these measurements and these guidelines. So taking your ruler, you're going to measure at 3.5 inches first and draw a line, a mark. You're going to rotate it 90 degrees, and we're going to measure at 2.5 inches. Rotate 90 degrees, and we're going to measure at 3.5 inches. Rotate 90 degrees, and we're going to measure at 2.5 inches. Then we're going to take and join up our two lines, and then our other lines are here and here, and that gives us our two pieces for the outside. So we're looking at that bit there, so the front of the card and the front of the card. Then we measure in here, and that's 5 inches, and the first piece here is 1 5/8, and then we do 1 5/8 from this side, and then do the same here on your other line. So 1 5/8 is there. Move back to that point on that side, and 1 5/8 and measure in, and that should, in theory, give us 1 3/4 inches there, and 1 3/4 inches there. So join these lines up, and join these lines up. Then this should be 3.5 inches, which it is, and then you need to measure that at 1 3/4, 1 3/4. Join those two lines up. And then to create your triangles, do corner to corner there, and corner to corner there. So that way you're using up your whole piece of 6 by 6 paper. Okay, so let's cut those pieces up using our trimmer. So I'm going to go with the long pieces first to make the outside, the front parts. So I'm going to line up each point on my trimmer, pop it down and cut. That's one corner. And let's do the same here. So that's my two pieces for the front. So if I turn it over that way, you can see them. Then using my straight flats now, I should be able to draw my lines down there for each corner piece. I'll put them there. Can you see them okay? Let's put them over there. It's because they're a bit shiny, aren't they? And then go up to this point here. Our other piece. And then, oh, my blade's a bit funny. Oh dear. Just get those bits off. 1 3/4. And you could group them together or cut them individually, but if you just line them up there and there. And there are your 4 little corners that we've just made as well. It's going quite rustic, this one. We also need to make 2 white pieces for here and here. This is where you're going to write your notes. So what you could do is you could get any scrap piece of paper and you could line up your shapes that you've just cut. And then cut around them. Like that. Let's see if I've got any other pieces of small pieces of white card. Any offcuts that you're not quite sure whether they'll fit. Let's do that one. And again, so pop it in the corner there so you know you've got a straight corner. You might want to do that in pencil. I've done it in pen so that you can see it a little bit better. And then I'm lining the lines that I've just done with the trimmer underneath to be as straight as possible. Cut down with nice straight lines to move around to that way to make sure that this edge is nice and straight. And then across this way. That's one more piece. Now remember to turn it over. If you've done it pencil, you can rub the pencil lines out. If you've done it in pen, just flip it over that way. Same way with this one. So line up the where we draw around the shape with the trimmer, cut, twist it round, make it nice and flat. And then let's move it across. And again, I'm not going to, because I've done it in pen, I'm going to flip it over and use what we class as the emergency side, the other side. Let's pop that to one side. Now we're at a position where we can start putting our cards together. Get all the scrappy pieces. So the first bit we're going to do here is I've pre-cut the front of the card. I'm using some, remember it was 4 by 5 3/4, so I've pre-cut a piece of card for the front in white that is 3 3/4 by 5 1/2. So it's given us a nice quarter of an edge image. Or frame, sorry, not an image, frame. Then I'm going to take my 2 corners that I cut out of the 6 by 6 piece and pop those on the front at an angle. That's the front of the card. Then we'll take our inside pieces and we'll take the white pieces first. And these are going to go here because this is where we're going to write our messages. Okay. Then we take our patterned pieces. On this one I'm putting the patterned pieces here. Now I pre-fold it so that it sits better on the fold lines in the card bit underneath. You don't have to do this, you could just stick it down, but I find it makes the card fold a little bit better. It's so rough. Let's just get a piece of sandpaper. If you ever find that your card or paper is a little bit rough around the edges, a little bit of sandpaper works a treat to get rid of the bubbly bits. And then I pop that on top of the crease. And make sure it's stuck down nice because it's going to be a moving part. And then we'll do the same with this for the top. Fold it in half, and again I'm just going to just means your blades last just that little bit longer because it doesn't always cut. Sometimes it's the paper. Spin that around and pop it down there. And then the triangle pieces, if you want to put them in, again, I'm just going to sand them because they really are quite rough. I have popped them in there and there and there and there. But you could do them whichever way you want to do them, but make them symmetrical. Oop. This will open up lovely because it's got a little bit of shine in it, so it catches the light when you open up the card. Obviously you don't have to put these corner pieces in, you can decorate them differently, you can put stamped images on them, it's entirely up to you. I don't like to waste anything, so I just use it all. So then when you fold it all in on itself, because we've put that layer on one of the folds, just make sure that you, we need that off again. Where's my bone folder? Just fold it down again, just to make sure that it's nice and tight. And then when you open it up, it pops up like that. Okay, you see okay? Yeah. So when it comes to popping it in the card, what we're going to do is we're going to line it up. So you can see here now you've got that little bit of a gap to make sure that you can't see it when the fold, and make it as centered as you can in the card. Get your glue. You could use double-sided sticky tape if you want it to be on permanent, like quicker. I'm just using the glue. I'm holding it down in the center, pop the top and press and hold it to make sure that there's a nice good solid glue. Whilst I'm still holding it, I flip the card over, holding it in place, and put glue on the opposite side and press it down, and we'll just leave this set a little bit. So I think that should have set. So when you open the card, there you have your inside that you can then decorate how you would like to. On this one, for example, I've popped a greeting down the side. I've put a little Santa Claus on the front. I actually blended colours into on top of this so the shiny stood out. So my blend brushes in the same colour. And when I opened it up, I decorated it with some other bits and pieces inside. You can see here I've put a little snowflake on this one so it pops up, but it's got a bit creased as I've been doing that. And then, so that when it folds, it's supposed to go down that side and stay solid. So that's that one. That's the smaller version. Oh, got a bit of glue there, so let's get rid of my glue with my glue rubber. There we go. Okay. Let's pop that to one side. Right, let's get on and make the larger card. This one is quite a bit quicker. We're going to use, I've got a pre-cut piece of card here that is 6 by 12 inches. I'm just going to fold it in half. You could score it if you want to. This is going to create our base. Now I've got some designer series paper. Actually, I was going to do I want to do the red and black? That might be nice. Red, green and black. Let's do that. I was going to do green, but I think I'm going to do the pinky colour. So this is my big piece of 12 by 12. Now what you have to do, remember I said at the first card, when you open it up, you want to have a little bit of card on either side. So at the moment it's too big. So before we start doing the same folds as we did for the rectangle card, I'm going to cut off 1/4 inch from two sides. So that side, I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees and I'm going to cut another 1/4 off just to keep it symmetrical. Let's just show you what I mean then when it comes to here, fitting in. So you can see now that when we put the card on top, or the paper on top, you've got a little bit of a edge on both sides. Okay, now I'm going to do it so that when the card opens up, I've got my trees on the inside rather than the green on this one. So let's follow the same instructions as before. We're going to fold the card in half. Now I want my trees to be up this way, so my crease line needs to go that way. So if you've got a pattern on your designer series paper, then make sure that you've got it in the right way. So I know that I want the fold that's down the middle here needs to go down the direction of the pattern. So our first fold is going to be that way, to make sure that the trees are all still going to be up the right way. So it's not quite right. If I hold that in place, maybe use my bone folder, I might be able to, that's a bit better. Use my bone folder, so it's slightly, so the trees are all going to be up the right way when it pops open that way. So that's our first bit. Our next bit we want to do is our corner folds. So that's one way. And then the opposite direction. Okay. So we now have our trees that way. So we need to create our corners here. Now with the small card, obviously we went slightly in. This one I'm going to do 3 inches across and down to the line to create nice squares there. So again, I'm going to use my trimmer, my scorer on my trimmer, not the trimmer. I'm going to measure at 3 inches. And then I'm going to go up to the first score line, lift it, and down to the second score line. I'm going to rotate it 90 degrees. Let's do exactly the same again. And again, take it out, rotate it 90 degrees. I'm not going all the way through because I don't want the lines to be in here. I'm just going up to the diagonal lines and then lifting it and going down again. So down to the diagonal, lift, and down to the diagonal. So I think I should have, all of my 4 corners. Can you see? You might be able to see better on this side. It's not coming through very well, is it? So, okay. So remember, this is our first fold. So what I'm going to try and make is, this one needs to go out. So we're going to turn it upside down because I want this one to go that one to go down, and then these sides to come up. So these are going to be mountain folds, the diagonals, and then this one is a valley fold, and this should help by doing that make, when you bend it, into a triangle. Okay, so sort of should fall in on itself. So the horizontal one is a valley fold and the 2 diagonals are what we call mountain folds. It should then fold on top of itself to make the triangle. Remember then what we did next was take our corner pieces and fold them in on themselves. On each side. And then you're going to flip it over and do exactly the same on the other side. And then this side as well, flip it and squeeze, push them in. And then it might not sit right because the folds might be just slightly out, but if you just take your bone folder and force the issue, then we should be good to go. So it's slightly out there, you can see from my fold, but it'll still work nicely in here when it comes to open it up. You see? Now the next thing you have to do is to make sure that when you pop this in the card, that when it pops open, your image is going to be the right way up. So I know I have to pop it in that way if this is the front of my card. So what I'm going to do here first, try and work out why that's not gone so well. And I think it's because it's not gone down far enough. Let's just push that down a little bit further. There we go, that's better. So it hadn't gone on the original fold lines. That should work better now. That looks better. So make sure again that it'll pop up the right way. So same principle as before. You're going to pop it in the base card and make sure you've got the same distance around the edge. And then going to put my glue all around. Again, you can use double-sided tape if you prefer. If you're happy, then fold it over and press it down. Then flip it over without moving it, the inside. Do the same again on this one. And just press and hold it for a little bit. And then when you're ready, it should then be ready to open. Okay, then you can decide how you want to decorate the front of your card. I think I might pick up some of the green that's on the outside, so I'm going to take this one that's here. God, it's quite bright actually. Let's see if I can get not quite so acidic then. Let's go for, I reckon that's Granny Apple Green. Yeah, Granny Apple Green. Yeah, let's do a nice finish so I know the outside is six by 6. So I'm going to do 5 by 5 3/4 by 5 3/4. Pop that on there, just so you know which is the front card and which is the back. Okay, then another thing that you can do within this card, you'll notice I'll just bring the original one in here. I've just decorated it with colours to match from the inside, so you can do exactly the same. So this would lend itself quite nicely on the front of there because of the trees. Inside this one, what I've done is put some labels on so that you can write on, because obviously it's quite busy inside. You're not really got anywhere to write inside because you're making the most of the designer series paper. And what I've done here is I've taken a couple of labels, some here for example, and I've stuck one on one side and one on the other side, so that when you shut them up, can you see that they don't touch one another and they slide in on one another. So another element of pop-up. And again, you can do the same principle on these bits here and have them overhanging. So I'll just go and get another card to show you that I made. There's a smaller version, but again, so I've made the pop-up side inside with the pop-ups, and you can see they fold on one another. But I've also put the flowers on each of the corners here. And I've decorated the inside of this one slightly differently by cutting a strip off and making it more patterned. Okay. So there you have 3 cards, all made the same principle, with a nice explosion finish on the inside. So hopefully you find some time to have a go at making these yourself. Pop them that way, and I look forward to any comments and feedback that you might put in the information below. All the measurements I'll make sure are in the blurb underneath on the YouTube video. Thanks for watching and hope you have fun. Many thanks, bye.